Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and it's not Spawn Year. It's day 25 of my comic review video day calendar, and I let the patrons pick today's comic out of 4 random ones selected by my CMZ database. And I shook my phone because that has a cool feature where I can shake my phone, and then an issue will pop up. And I did that 4 times, and one of the issues that came up was Adventures of Superman number 503 from Reign of the Supermen. So, out of 25 issues that I will have reviewed on this show so far, 2 of them are related to Death of Superman. And I'm sure some people are going to look at this and go, yes, of course, Cap cannot stay away from Death of Superman. He's got to do one every 25 issues. But that was not my intention. I didn't do it on purpose. I put whatever random things came up. You'll just have to believe me. You'll just have to take my word for it. But that's what happened. So we are smack dab in the middle of the Reign of the Supermen arc here, and this is just before everybody realizes that Cyborg Superman is the villain of this story, and that he is definitely not the original Superman, and he is not to be trusted, and he destroyed Coast City. And we are in the rubble on the cover here, and in this issue of Coast City, he's blaming it on the Eradicator, and working with the government, hiding in plain sight, manipulating the situation, and pretending like he is on the side of right and that he's trying to help, but he's actually trying to maneuver things so that he can systematically take out each of the other Supermen and reign supreme. And he's working with Mongol. He's got lots of nefarious, sinister plans, and this is just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this stuff when I was a kid, and it's great going back to it. I haven't read this in quite a while, but weird reading one of these out of context. This is not one of those issues that I would recommend you just pick up and read without knowing what's going on. You might be a little bit lost, although even this, more than a lot of issues you might read now or in recent years, in the last 15, 20 years even, still doesn't feel like it's being written to trade. It still feels like it knows that some kids or even some adults are maybe reading random comics, and gives you enough bang for your buck in this one issue, but it is, referring back to things that have happened a long time ago, and it is the next chapter in ongoing story, obviously, and it ends on a big giant cliffhanger. So, you probably don't want to look at this by itself, but it's still fun to do that, and there's plenty here. So, you get the big reveal in the issue on the cover, although I think you're probably, because again, it's been a while since I've read this, I think the reader, if he's reading everything, because of course this is going between 4 different books, and each of the 4 Superman titles is represented by or has one of the 4 Supermen that takes Superman's place spearheading the book. And so Adventures of Superman is Superboy. Cyborg is moving away from whichever book he had, I can't remember, to be the villain of all of this now. So that formula is going to start to I'm hesitating because I'm trying to remember, is it actually Superboy that was Adventures, or is it Cyborg? One of those guys is regularly the Superman for this, and then that whole formula will break down, and you'll have a larger story that intertwines a lot more in between each of these, where Cyborg Superman is the villain. Anyway, the reader, pardon me, I think already knows that Cyborg Superman is the bad guy at this point. I don't think that's revealed here for the first time, but I might be wrong about that. But if you're not aware of it, it's already given to you on the cover, and it might be a surprise to you as you read this. So again, Cyborg Superman working with the White House. He is pretending like the Eradicator has destroyed Coast City, and he's going on a recon mission. And he, in the middle of this, suggests that he finds an excuse to get Superboy involved. I assume so that he can kill Superman or Superboy. That's his whole intention, because that's what he tries to do at the end. And the big cliffhanger is maybe Superboy is dead. That's what it looks like has happened. Did I mention credits on this? This is written by Carl Kessel with art by Tom Grummett. And you've got, meanwhile, WGBS trying to figure out how exactly they're going to cover this. That's run by an Edge, but not a Morgan Edge. And I didn't remember that there was an Edge at this time period at all. This is Vinny Edge. And I do remember this part of it. They're using Superboy as like kind of their mascot right now, and it's even he even calls him their meal ticket. He's kind of a corporate stooge, and Superboy is a well-intentioned but naive and full of himself teenager. Or he looks and acts like a teenager, but he is a clone of Superman, and he's actually only 3 weeks old. And his kind of internal conflict going on through this is an identity problem where he's got an inferiority complex where he's worried that he's not actually the clone of Superman, and it reminds me of what will come up just a couple years after this with the Clone Saga in Spider-Man, where you have two Spider-Mans trying to decide which one is the real Spider-Man, and they're feeling inferior about maybe being a clone. This is weirdly a flip of that, where you have a clone who hopes he is a clone of the right person, because he is not going to be as valued, and he doesn't matter as much, he feels, if he can't tout himself up as Superman. So his genetics matter to him in that way, and that's kind of interesting. He has a reduced power set from Superman, kind of like Eradicator does, almost like we got to make sure that none of these characters are too powerful, because none of them are going to be the actual Superman, and he's going to come back a little bit later. So the only one that can be as powerful as Superman is Hank Henshaw, is a cyborg Superman, and so naturally, of course, he's going to end up being the bad guy that is seemingly all-powerful and very difficult to take out, or if not all-powerful, pretty darn powerful. He's going to get his robot arm busted up in this issue, but he says it's really easy to repair. But anyway, so the identity thing is kind of interesting, and then Superboy, there's some. It's hard not to review Death of Superman stuff without just constantly going back to look how dated this is, look how 90s this is, and maybe more so than a lot of other things I could review from this period. And I don't want to say that, and I talked about this when I reviewed the first issue of all of this, when I reviewed, the actual Death of Superman, Superman 75. I don't want to say that Death of Superman, Reign of the Superman, before that, Funeral for a Friend, that stuff is trying to comment on or be a satire of the hard edginess of early 90s comics, and how a lot of readers just want brutality, and it's all about the blood and guts, and it's all about the anti-heroes, and they want to feel like they're reading, not their father's Superman or Batman or whatever the superhero is, like Nightfall was doing, because as I mentioned in that video, Nightfall is a kind of direct critique of all of that. But then reading this, I'm feeling that like there's maybe a little more in that than I ever, with this stuff, that I ever gave it credit for, or at least it's commenting maybe more subtly on how necessary Superman is in comics, in a world where so many heroes are not altruistic, and where you have so many shades of gray. So here you've got all these very 90s image-like stand-ins for Superman, but none of them are really Superman, and the ones that want to live up to it are going to have the shattering disillusionment. They're going to learn that they can't live up to it, because they, in some ways, are just too much of what the 90s audience wants. So that's interesting. I don't know how intended that is, but that's the thing I was reading. I was getting off the page this time around. But one of the silly things I wanted to bring up is the sexual innuendo here, or it's maybe more than innuendo. There's this. Let me drop this down so you can see it. Superboy is hanging out with this girl that they're kind of flirting and teasing each other, and they're maybe dating, and she is playing a Death of Superman video game with him, which seems in really poor taste that would come out in the fiction, in continuity, and that might be itself kind of a comment or just a little tongue-in-cheek nod to just how popular Death of Superman is in the real world, and that actually did indeed get a video game. And I don't know if that's come out yet, but Death and Return of Superman, well, there's no way that's come out yet because the return hasn't even happened yet, unless they got that out before the ending in the comics. But I'd have to look that up. I don't remember what year that comes out. But anyway, it's. And this isn't that video game anyway, because this looks like a one-on-one fighter, and it looks, kind of Atari-esque, because it seems like all you do is there are you can play a two-player, and one of you is Superman and one of you is Doomsday, and you see which one wins. Okay, because that's what would have gotten released back then. This is not 1983, but anyway. So, massively poor taste, crazy to think that something like that would come out and would be, successful and would actually be sold, maybe, but I doubt it. But anyway, they're like I said, kind of flirting, and she says, and he's upset because she's beat him at this video game, and she says, you got the talent, someone's just got to show you how to use your joystick better. Wow. Okay, moving right along, and then Superboy is best friends with this girl that works for WGBS called Tala, or Tana, and I actually kind of remember her, and they're not dating, or they're not dating yet. I don't know if that ever happens, but she says they're just friends, but she really, really cares about him, and I think is trying to hold him to maybe somewhat higher standards than he holds himself, and he's there for the fame and the glory, and he wants to be Superman, and it's that really typical teenager thing, the rebellious teen. No place where he says that in this issue, but he says that constantly all over the place in this stuff. He does refer to himself as Superman, though, and she's not allowed, though, to go with him to cover the Superboy joining up with Cyborg Superman, because what's happened is, again, Cyborg Superman is said to the White House, I really want Superboy to come help me, so they call up John of Superboy's PR and everything else he's doing, and so they send him out, and Edge won't let her go for whatever reason. I get the sense that this is maybe a flashback to something that's happened already, or maybe it's just contrived here in the moment so that she won't be in the line of fire. That's how it reads, is that we just had to off, and there's no way she would Cyborg Superman, who is, well, I'll get to that in a second. I just want to read this really quick. He says, yeah, if you want to keep your job and have a chance at covering your precious Superboy again, just tell the kid that you're not, going to be able to go there. I don't know exactly what his reasoning is for this, but I want to mention just how super ruthless Cyborg Superman is in this. Hank Henshaw. He is going around Coast City, pretending like he's looking for survivors to save, but he's actually trying to make sure that nobody has survived because he doesn't want any witnesses and because he's just evil and he wants to kill everybody. And I don't remember exactly what his endgame is and full on what his motivations are, except for just, petty revenge. And he finds some survivors, and he tells the White House that he's found them, but then he incinerates them himself, and this trick he plays on them is really cruel. He says, Again, this hard-edged, kind of early 90s stuff. It's like, this is what the world is like if you don't have Superman. Like, do you want this? Like, again, I am reading a little bit of critique in this. And he says there's a rogue Superman that did all this. And there he is behind you. And they turn around and they say, where? And he says, like I said, behind you, because he's the rogue Superman and he just incinerates them. Wow, that's a rough panel. But I really like that storytelling across the page. That is some unsettling stuff. We're doing a really good job of making our villain very menacing, but also making him as opposite of Superman as humanly possible. Cyborg Superman is an absolute perversion of Superman, and it's quite good. I like that a lot. So anyway, Superboy. Oh, and then you've got the 2 pages with almost no words on them, where there's some kind of mechanical monster that is a little reminiscent of Doomsday, and that's like running down a mountain, and his onomatopoeia, his sound effects words are doom, doom, doom. And I don't remember that. I don't know what that's about, but that's set up for something that'll happen in a later issue. So again, one of the reasons that this is not exactly, a thing you'd want to read all by itself. Out of 22 pages, 2 of them are taken up by a thing with no explanation that will pay off somewhere down the line. Really nice panel layouts here. I like the side column with Superboy and the Cyborg Superman in the background there, that big, almost full-page spread behind that column of panels. Really nice layouts. But anyway, Cyborg Superman, for a little while, pretends like he is on the side of the military and that he is on Superboy's side, and then, of course, he double-crosses Superboy, and he is, I said hiding in plain sight. He's around him seems kind of dumb for not realizing a little bit more of what's going on, and I think we're cheating here a little bit by not having a vocal performance, by not having like a live action, or if there's an animation, a vocal performance, because I don't know how you could deliver some of his dialogue without it coming off like he's almost winking at the camera. Yeah, I killed all these people, but I don't want anybody to know it, but I'm basically telling you that I did that. He keeps saying a lot of things with and this is melodrama. I don't expect a lot of subtlety from comics, but maybe a little more than this. He is, it's hard to decide where that line should be, but he's saying a lot of things with very thinly veiled subtext. He says, okay, if these soldiers follow me in to the remnants of Coast City with their helicopter, they will die. And Superboy's like, well, don't be all glass half empty. And then later, he just kills them all in front of Superboy with his heat vision and is like, look, I told you, I said they would die. And always keeps his word. And then with Superman or with Cyborg Superman and Superboy, really thrilling stuff. I like the artwork through this quite a bit, and a lot of good mood and atmosphere here, and I like the oranges and the reds with all the fire in the background. It's real kind of intense and exciting stuff, but what I'm a little bit confused about is why through this, when he's fighting for his life, Superboy is still so concerned with whether or not he's the clone of Superman. I'm like, priorities, dude. Maybe think about this whole thing a little bit later. And I guess the idea is supposed to be that the Cyborg Superman is trying to get under his skin by saying, you're not worthy of being Superman. You're not even his clone. But like, I'm fighting for my life. I don't know that I'm going to be thinking that hard as he does. And then there's Mongol waiting for his time to strike and help his master, who is Cyborg Superman. But he, no honor among thieves. He also does not plan, I don't think, on Cyborg Superman being his master forever. And then at the end of this, I really like that silhouette shot there with Cyborg Superman with the kind of Dutch angle. That's great. and then he punches Superboy in the face real hard, and big blood splatter like you'd expect in a Spawn comic. I read a lot of Image stuff that ends from this period that ends with almost exactly this panel, and yeah, that's brutal, that's rough. And then you know, it reminds me a little bit of that Wolverine issue from Claremont that I reviewed a few days ago, where it looks like your hero is down for the count, and what happens? Oh no. And of course, Superboy will survive this. I don't remember how bad a shape he's in at the end of this, because it's been a long time since I've read this, but I mean, you know, there is Superboy stuff after this. He'll ultimately prevail, but yeah, this stuff is just real nostalgic for me, and I keep saying this, but it makes me want to go back and reread all this stuff. I own every Death of Superman thing in singles, this whole arc from that all the way up through Reign of and Return of Superman. And not that I would necessarily read it in singles. I think I also have it in trade, and I could read it digitally. But I don't know, just going back to the stuff in print is really fun. And I also am really nostalgic for, I don't know if I've said this year. Oh, here's an ad, a double-page ad for Batman Returns on Super Nintendo. That is a great game. We'll see, I hesitate. One of them is bad, one of them is good. I think the Super Nintendo one is the really good beat-em-up, and the Genesis one is the game that was not so good. But yeah, look, there's this big duck. Batman Returns looks really good in 2D comic art. And, you know, for the longest time, I wanted to see that Batman 89 comic, and then that was very weird, and I'll review that at some point. I still haven't gotten to that. I haven't read the last issue because it took forever for it to come out, but I digress. I'm also really nostalgic for this kind of paper, just for old school newsprint. The smell of it, the look of it, the slight fading when these things are a little older. It's just my childhood, man. Anyway, that is Adventures of Superman 503, and I'll be with you again tomorrow for another one. I don't know what I'm reviewing yet. Some random comic out of my collection. I'm going to pull it out, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to talk about it with you. That's what we do here. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining me. Once again, I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.